having said that, I want to introduce Rob. And Rob's been involved with the restoration of Cannonook Creek. He is the chair of Cannonook Creek Association for the last 44 years and is an advocate of the TAFE to Bay community vision, a vision first adopted by Frankston City Council in 2005, but yet to be implemented 18 years later. Well, what's happened, of course, is that subsequently other plans have overshadowed and overtaken the original TAFE to Bay vision. So please welcome Rob THURLEY.
How many minutes have you got?
Another 15, 16 minutes.
Okay, good.
Okay. 10 minutes?
No. 5.
43 years and 10 minutes?
5. 10 minutes.
Okay, I've got to condense it. 3
Yeah.
minutes?
3.
Oh, I think 3 minutes will do it.
Yeah.
Okay, look, it's great to be down here. We've 10 years ago, we're here with a different cause. We opened the boulevard, the Cannonook Creek Boulevard, which was a public plaza. It was land that was accumulated by the community over many years, over about 3 decades, and it was there when the restoration was going to happen on Cannonook Creek. This plaza was one of the key features. But I want to say something that was touched on before. We're very lucky here. We've got a wonderful geography and we've got wonderful natural assets, and that's because this was developed late. Frankston benefited early because the train came to Frankston in 1880, and this was a resort, mainly. The folks from Melbourne that could afford it would come down here, and the folks that couldn't afford it would camp here. And so it has been a wonderful piece of geography. It's got a marvellous beach. It's a special beach. The features of the beach are that it's got 3 sandbanks, there's no rock, and it is recognised as the safest beach to swim in Victoria. So we're very lucky. But it hasn't always been the cleanest beach in Victoria. And so we have to acknowledge the work of previous generations, previous people that have done wonderful work to undo the damage that was done to this waterway way back nearly 2 centuries ago. So what happened, if those that can remember, that this creek was a sewage outfall. Right up until 1991. This wonderful asset was fouled permanently by the Frankston Sewerage Authority, which was owned by the Frankston Council, who couldn't afford to send our sewage to the purification plant next door. And this sewage would come out of the Frankston beach, depending on which way the tide was going, and would foul the beach, going down to Oliver's Hill or up towards Seaford. So my first involvement with Cannonook Creek Association was to protect the beach. I live on the beach, so I was there to protect the beach, and to do that, we had to clean up the creek, and to do that, we had to convince the government and council to close the Frankston Sewerage Authority and send the sewage to a better treatment facility. That got us involved, but we also dreamt. So in 1979, Cannonook Creek Association put out a report to the Minister, which was accepted, and subsequently became the basis of a management plan in 1992. That work was done by some very significant people, very few, but very significant people. They were from the Dandenong Valley Authority. And the politics of the whole situation meant that these people who did the work, who wrote the management plan, nobody writes a management plan now. You go and get a consultant from Price Waterhouse. You can't write a management plan. And it'll cost you $500,000 to do something that's your job. But we don't do it that way. So this management plan, when Melbourne Water took over from DVA, they didn't like it. And so from the very first go, this management plan had pressure from Melbourne Water, and we had pressure from council, because Kendall Creek is not only a environmental waterway, but it's a recreational asset. It's heritage asset. It's a social asset. So the triple bottom line: social, economic, and environmental. These things are factored into that plan. Now these men were young men. Some of them have now passed, but we do not get the same level of input and passion that we had back in those days. And so the whole issue of plants, which we spoke about, which was been spoken about before, is a real problem for us as community people, because we trust that system where the council says, what? We're going to have a plan for Kendall Creek restoration. So let's put one together, and we'll have the responsible authorities put it together. And then we have a plan for that, which sets out various principles. We'll look at the Kendall Creek precinct here, which the council picked up again as part of the TAFTA Bay. If you look at the principles of TAFTA Bay, and I've got them here and it's on KCA's website, the planning principles everyone here would agree with. They're very simple. This is supposed to be pedestrianised. The whole precinct is a community asset. It's community space. It's amenity. And it will host events, it will have restaurants, and it will have a residential component. And so that's what TAFTA Bay said. Why didn't it happen? Why can't we trust that democratic process? You're not always going to get what you want, but a management plan sifts through it and comes up with what is the consensus, and you can live with it. Why hasn't the management plan for Canada Creek ever been properly implemented? What's wrong with the system? What happens to plans that are put together in good faith with great input from the wide community? Not NIMBYs, but these plans are community plans. Frankston's community vision is the lifestyle capital of Victoria. That might disappoint a few people, but it's our vision, and the council's responsible to implement it faithfully. But it doesn't. The political process gets corrupted. So these plans just get shelved because they're inconvenient to certain sectors that's not democracy. So planning democracy is important, but when we don't have it, and we're not getting it. So when this site was opened up in 2010, it was KCA's 40th birthday present. And it was a huge celebration, a huge event. It was a precinct event, including the theatre and down to the hotels who put on music. And this area, it was opened up by the Minister of the day and the Mayor of the day, in good faith. Very shortly thereafter, we saw council machinery coming in to restore a car park. Now the vision of TAFTA Bay is this is supposed to be pedestrian space. Car parks are not part of this part of the vision. Car parking has to be away from the waterfront. But certain interests couldn't do that. So who is council for? Certain interests, or for the well-constructed plans that we put together? So then we heard that the council had another idea, a secret idea. They secretly sold this site, this community site, accumulated over 3 decades. They secretly sold it to the state government to avoid putting it out for community consultation. That's morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And yet, democracy, we have 3 three members of council who were there as party to that decision. And they say, well, you don't know who they are that supported that decision, but we know that only one person in council at that time, an unidentified person, in a suit and smiling, was the only person in council that said that was wrong. So we know the others just won't own up to what they did. Anyway, we then heard that there were going to be plans for this site, and it was going to be like Federation Square. Well, that was okay. Well, we're not happy with it, but Federation Square is a community space as well as other retail space, and so that was good. But what happened? This is not Federation Square, or is it? But the underlying principle of TAFTA Bay was to connect Frankston City to its waterfront. How the bloody hell does this building connect Frankston to the waterfront? Now so we've already got a live example. This is stage 1 of the Great Wall, but it's only half the size. This hasn't done anything for economic development. Frankston's still in decline economically. Okay. That was 55 minutes. Frankston's still in decline. And if we allow the next phase, stage 2 of the Great Wall of Frankston, which is twice as high, it will defeat the purpose of TAFTA Bay. It will not be connecting the town centre with the waterfront, and it will disadvantage everybody else that would ever want to develop something on the eastern side of Nepean Highway, because the views will be blocked. So the value in these buildings is the views. The whole idea of TAFTA Bay was the height was down. The heights would move upwards towards the station. They'd be at the lowest here on this sand dune. This is a sand dune here. This is part of the natural system. So I've only got 2 minutes, 1 minute left. We don't despair. We never despair. We know what's happened over the last century or so, and in particular the last 30 or 40 years. This community has really fought hard to create the lifestyle capital of Victoria, and it's not going to give up right now just because it's inconvenient to the planning department or to the state government, whoever. We're not going to give in. And we know that all the attempts to paint this group or this community as NIMBYs or only environmental interests is fundamentally wrong, and it's an insult, because the wider community, when we've been down at the Waterfront Festival and we've spoken to the wider community, 98% of the wider community have no idea of what the council's sinisterly planning here. They don't know. And when you tell them about the Great Wall, they say, what's the Great Wall? I said, this is what's being planned, and this is what council already has approved. It's going to VCAP, and then they get interested. The wider community does not support the Great Wall of Frankston. So the community, the control of this is in the hands of the community. We can win it. Other communities have won this. Preston Market was called in by the minister, and we've asked that our local member take this issue and our protest to the Minister for Planning, who's also a neighbour in Carrum. So we're hoping that this stage 2 will be stopped by our minister. That's the political process, and so I leave you with that, with hope. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rob. Rob's been a pillar of strength for so many years in the local community. Thank you so much. It's just a final couple of points I'd like to make, and one is there were a number of people involved in preparing today's rally. I won't name everyone, but I just want us to acknowledge their work in getting today to happen. I was only called in as a last resort to speak occasionally. Then the other point that I want to make, and this is a really important comment. Some years ago, I challenged a law in Victoria, and I fought and I changed legislation in this state. I did that on my own with the valuable assistance of a rather older lady in Melbourne. Between us, we changed that law. The message, therefore, to you, and again, I've been in many situations which were considered quite impossible, and through endeavour and through craft and skill, I made those situations change. So the message to you is that in each and every person there is a storehouse of strength. Never feel powerless. If you feel powerless, you will be powerless. If you feel empowered, you will make changes around you. And even though we are encouraged to believe that today in the superstructure of finance and world